Hello everyone, how you doing today? Thought I'd show some new things and cover a little bit more knowledge gained on CPU and flight model. Um, to start with, on a creation I already had on my workshop to friends only, um, this particular storage item here. I fixed it and I put out another version of it on my workshop now. And basically, the big change was it now centers properly when you place it. And to do that, what I actually had to do is copy the whole structure over to where it thought its center point was, and then kind of paste it there and move it. And then I saved the blueprint again. In my process of doing this, I think I screwed something up where I could not update the same blueprint, and I actually had to change the name on this slightly, um, so I could so it could be treated as a new blueprint. So now it's called MCRN Storage T3 Proto, um, and so that's kind of fixed up. It's still pretty inexpensive. I really didn't do much to up the cost of it. Being at CPU tier level 1 as well, it doesn't require any CPU blocks on it at all. So that was kind of a surprise to me. And in testing bases, I found that bases with the new tiered system are extremely flexible, which is awesome. In fact, the biggest bases I've got could be a whole lot bigger under this new tier system, and have more storage and more stuff in them. So it's actually increased by a pretty good margin over what the last CPU system was on basis. Um, Something else that is new and also on my workshop is, well, as in friends only currently, is this defense or MCRN point defense T1. Um, and I finished this. I took the advice of a couple comments about the center turret position, and I did, in fact, follow that and put in two turrets that are separated by about 3 blocks, on the top area, so they can face upward and cover this from like SV or something being right directly above it. As it comes stock with 6 cannon turrets only, but it has 4 additional turret mount points here, which also can shoot above the cannon turrets to give you just multiple turrets firing at every different angle, which is the whole point of this. It's built out of armored concrete, so these blocks are pretty tough. Um, and it's got ample storage in it as well for ammo, at 48,000 or 48K storage. So you can get a lot of ammunition in that, awful lot really, probably more than it actually needs. But as in CPU tiers, it's again CPU tier 1, and very low even on that. It could be almost 3 times bigger, well, 3 times bigger, um, and still be at CPU tier 1. So not an issue at all, really. So you can find this on my workshop now. This exact version that's here, just to show you a little bit on the underside. Um, it's kind of set up where I've got the ammo storage kind of going down one arm over here, and then your cores in the dead center, as well as a couple fuel tanks, a generator, and a capacitor. I now realize, though, that I don't have Wi-Fi in here, and that is something that I definitely wanted it to have. So it looks like I'm going to do another update to it and get a Wi-Fi in here, which should be really easy to do. Um, so obviously the solar panels are weak, but all the actual parts are kind of under one row here of full blocks of uh, the tougher material, and then there's side blocks all around this area as well. And if it's kind of placed in the ground, this is really hard to hit down in here, and that's the whole point of it. So as in cost, um, pretty cheap, about a 25-minute build time, requiring mostly stone dust. a little bit of these other things here. Second, iron being your second most expensive thing, but pretty light on iron. It does need 3 cobalt. I believe that's unavoidable because the ammo controller requires that. So it's got to have that. Can't make something like this without it. So that's about it though, and I think it would provide a nice defense against especially PvE stuff, having the coverage that it does. So with my whole idea with the Martians and this whole race is I want them to depend on this kind of thing around their base areas, which is going to allow me to build actual base pieces that are a lot cheaper and out of lesser materials and not have the guns and things that keeping the cost down. And then, of course, relying on those point defenses around the area to protect it. And I kind of like that idea because you can get up and going pretty quickly that way, and I could build stuff that is cheaper. And also have a lot of function for survival needs, but not cost a lot. And I think that was a big goal on this. And I'm going to keep on pursuing that idea with the Martians, I think. Just a general concept on how they differ from the human race in that regard. A couple other things. DOOmnoddle has built a Creole Chip, and this is now in the Creole collection, or the Military Survival Series Alien Edition collection, I should call it. It's very cool, very detailed, lots of kind of the Creole theming and coloring and texturing and the whole ball of wax. And this thing is really agile. I mean, it's got crazy maneuverability on it, which is pretty cool. As kind of a fighter type thing, it does great. Whoops, didn't mean to actually get out of it here. So let me just set this back down, and yeah, check that out. Awesome, really made me happy, and I just had to show everybody it. So that's just how that came down there. This one doesn't have an interior, and to me it would be like a fighter type of thing, but it's really fast and responsive for being that type of ship. Now this is brand new, and I also have this now as friends only on my workshop. This is my first CPU tiered moving thing, built ground up to use the new flight model as well as CPU. And the results, I'm pretty happy with it. This is a hardened steel SV. I kind of built it following some of the ideas of that test model I had with the new flight model. So I've got thruster positions kind of out on the, not entirely on the outer edges, but somewhat. I got them separated. So I got like a group in each 4 corners of this. And by doing that, it needed no RCS whatsoever. And it actually flies pretty good. But I wanted this to do a function that I would want in the game, especially for single player, and that is to be able to engage POIs. Now, in this case, I would say lower end POIs to maybe mid-level POIs. I wouldn't necessarily take this in on really tough ones, but it has what it needs, I think. It has 4 rocket launchers, and I like to have 4 rocket launchers when engaging turrets on a POI, because with a well-placed shot, you can take out most turrets with one shot or one volley of 4 rockets. And I do like that. The quicker you can take the turrets out, the less potential damage you'll take. And that's kind of the whole point in this. And then I also have 2 Gatling guns on here, which I find quite useful for shooting down drones and shooting ground troops and things like that. So it has the offense I would want for the role that it is. But I also wanted it to be like a lot of the other SVs I built, where it can do the whole role it was meant to do. And in this case would be to engage the POI and then return with a bunch of loot back to wherever home is. So it does have 24K storage on it, as well as a lot of lift thrust. So that's part of the deal, and it has 2.5K ammo, which I think is enough for what it needs to do, plus a couple extra storage boxes. Now it does not have a shield, and it does not have warp, and that's kind of the sacrifices I had to make to allow this to function properly, I guess. But it does have a constructor in here too, and these are quite expensive for a CPU. But I never built an SV short of the open air like motorcycle type that didn't have a constructor on it, and I don't really want to start building ships without constructors. I think it's useful if you want to build some stuff on the fly or process something. It's nice to have around. But it has all your other standard features, Wi-Fi and detector and air and armor locker and all that fun stuff. And a couple passenger seats back here. And a drone hatch. So you gotta have a drone hatch, you know. So as in CPU costs and costs overall. Now if you notice on CPU usage, I am over by a little bit. 172 over the 24,000 cap on tier 3. However, the CPU efficiency is 100%. So by being over a little bit, it's not making any difference whatsoever. Of course, the more you go over, the more effects you would start to see from that on efficiency. Which kind of brings me to the next point here. Let me I'll just show you how this thing actually flies real quick before I move on to that. And it flies pretty good. Pretty good. It's not as agile as DOOmnoddle's ship, but it does all right. I can't complain about the flying on it at all. And this was done with 0 RCS, so keep that in mind. Now, a shield could be added to this, as well as a pentaxid tank, and that's kind of what I've got this spot up here sort of for, to place a shield. I didn't really think about a place to put in a pentaxid tank, but I think I could just lay one down on one of the side walls over here or something. But that would require it to go to a tier 4 CPU. The shields are very, very expensive, and I actually think they're a bit of a cheat too. So I'm not so worried about that, and I'm not so worried about not having warp drive on it either, as I typically would move all this stuff around with a CV anyway. Alright, so the next part. Let me spawn in something here, and I'm going to do a conversion on it real quick. So I'm going to spawn the Tachi, and where we got you? Right here. So this is the 10.5 Toski that's on the workshop currently. Not built for 10.6 whatsoever. Not built for CPU whatsoever. So obviously, if you look at these numbers, they're just crazy right now. Just looks like, oh my God, this is impossible to make this ship ever work again. Blah 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 blah. Well, that was kind of my first knee-jerk reaction on it. So I'm going to do something here in a minute and show you how easy it is to actually make this ship work without removing any of its function in 10.6 experimental or with all the new stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in 4 of these tier 4 CPU blocks. Now you don't need the lesser ones if you're going to just go to tier 4. All I need is these 4 blocks. Okay, so now we've added the blocks. Usually takes just a second for this to update, and there it goes. Okay, so now it jumped the CPU up to 1.6 million as a total. Now I'm still at 14 million over here. The next process I want to do is remove all of the RCS on this ship. And this is going to be kind of the case on every single ship I've got, I believe, especially the larger ones. So I found that it can be problematic hunting down the RCS in your ships. Even with my older stuff, when I was messing with it, I couldn't remember where I had all the RCS, and flying around a big ship looking for it, not the greatest experience. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just place another RCS for reference. And from there, what I'm going to do is open up the console by the tilde key, type in DI, which stands for debug information. And that pops up this little window in the top center of the screen. And when you look at something, it tells you what that block is, like right here on the bottom row. So I can say that this is RCS block MS_T2. So now what you want to do is hop in is you want to figure out what the ID of your ship is. And to do that, you get into the P menu under statistics, and it'll tell you right over here. This number will fluctuate depending on how much you have spawned in. So you really need to look this up to be safe, and don't just assume it's one number. So this is 1029. So then I get back into the console. I want to do the command replace blocks, and then the ID, which is 1029. And now the block I want to replace, which I kind of screwed up. I want to be looking at this when I do it. The block I want to replace is right up here, and that is RCS block MS blah 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 blah. So RCS block MS_T2. Keep in mind, when you type in these block names, they have to be case sensitive, or it will not recognize it. So in this case, I don't want to replace a block, I want to remove the block. So rather than putting in the block I want to replace this with, I put in the word empty. So at this point in time, it should remove all the RCS, including the one I just put in front of me. So by removing all the RCS, what does that do for my CPU? Well, it drastically reduced it from 14 million to like 5 million something, which is still far over the tier on tier 4 CPU, and putting it at 82% efficiency. But what does that actually mean? Well, let's fly it. Let's take this thing around and see how it performs at 82% CPU efficiency. Oh my gosh, it is so incredibly fast and agile that it's like too fast. Like, I should probably remove a whole bunch of the thrusters on it. And it turns good, and all these angles. I mean, it's like it's faster than I would like this ship to be. It's a little too twitchy. So that's telling me I've got way too many thrusters on here. In which, as I start removing some of the thrusters that are kind of unneeded, I would gain more CPU available yet, and make it even more efficient. But at 82%. It's totally usable. I just suspect it would probably require a little bit more fuel and not be as fuel efficient. But that's not that bad, really. I mean, it's put it this way, it's a lot less scary than I thought it was. So, and then yeah, I've got the control and everything I would want to properly move and land this ship. It's almost a little too twitchy. I kind of wish it would slow down a little bit. So, as in how I stand right now, I know that because, like this ship as a prime example, which disregarded CPU entirely in the first place, I can make work just fine in the new game. So that would carry on to literally all my big CVs. The one I would be the most worried about would be the Creole Overseer War Carrier, which is, well, quite a bit bigger than this ship is yet. So that one might be the most problematic, but you know what? I bet you I can get it to work. It just would be kind of probably a gas guzzler. So if you don't fly it around a whole lot and park it and use it as a carrier, but move it when you have to, I think it would still work out just fine. So in a nutshell, I'm not that worried about the CPU anymore, really. And I'm willing to go over, not have things 100% efficient as well. If I want a bigger creation with more guns and more stuff on it, I'm going to still do it, and I'll still make it work in game. It's just probably not going to be 100% CPU efficient. So, but it's not that big of a deal if it's not. I thought it was going to penalize you severely for that, and it's really not penalizing you that much at all. And maybe that was changed from the original iteration of it, but it's always being tweaked and everything's being adjusted and all that fun stuff. So it's not bad. As in thruster placement, that was another hang up I had. It's not super picky, to be honest. Like this one, did I really have to have thrusters in 4 different sections like this? Not necessarily, no. I think it does probably, it might make it more efficient where you don't have to run RCS to turn it, which is going to save you some CPU for some other things. So although it's kind of encouraged to try to follow that kind of flight model a little bit, you absolutely don't have to. And I don't want to limit my future designs to all follow this method. I'd like to, build some neat wedge-shaped things or other things that don't necessarily have the thruster layout like this one does. And I can still do that. And I'll have to put more time and research into doing that kind of thing. Now, tomorrow I plan on doing another video where I actually want to build a... I want to play with the idea, basically, of an SV that's designed to move HVs. So that's something I want to dive into, and I haven't done it yet. And so tomorrow's video is going to be all about building that, and I'm not going to really show any existing stuff. But I just want to give you an update on my thoughts and opinions. And obviously, I seriously try to be completely honest in my thoughts and not hold back or do anything political in nature. Of course, I love this game, and I want this game to be the best it can be. And, but, I also don't want to, sound political about it or change my stance, to try to be nice or whatnot. I just want to just say it how I think it is. And that's the method I'm always going to try to do. So, when I say I'm not as concerned about the CPU as I was in my last couple of videos, it's true. I'm not as concerned about it. So I'm not making it up to sugarcoat anything. I'm just after my trial and the experiments and everything, this is just the conclusion I came to. It's not that bad. In fact, I could really push base design with this and could build some bases that have an incredible amount of storage and features on them, especially more so than I ever could with the 7500 CPU limits. So in a lot of ways, it gives you even more flexibility. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and if you want, check out any 3 of these, actually 4 creations. This is on the workshop by DOOmnoddle, the Chimera dropship, as well as the new version of this that centers properly. This is on my workshop as friends only, and this is on my workshop as friends only. So all these things are available right now. Keep in mind, they are designed for the experimental version only, at least on mine. I think DOOmnoddle's is 10.5 compliant, where these other ones would probably air out if you weren't on the experimental version of the game. And that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any comments, questions, or thoughts, please let them be known. And thanks a lot, all. See you later.